A high-stakes battle is unfolding inside our government agencies as Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard takes unprecedented action against what many are calling the deep state. Sources confirm multiple criminal referrals have been sent to the Department of Justice, but the details of what's been uncovered have officials scrambling. Who exactly are these shadowy figures operating within our government, and what classified information was illegally leaked to the Washington Post? And why is undercover footage from inside the Pentagon sending shockwaves through the Defense Department? Well, the implications of this internal conflict reaches the highest levels of our national security apparatus. So keep watching as we expose the shadow government operatives working against President Trump from within. And while deep state traitors undermine America from within, many patriots are fighting their own internal battles with chronic pain. Like these shadow government operatives, inflammation can sabotage your body's normal function. Before reaching for another painkiller, you need to know about this turmeric hack for pain. A leading pain doctor discovered a turmeric extract 200 times more powerful than standard turmeric. His patients experienced remarkable relief as this formula attacks pain at its source, just as Tulsi Gabbard is targeting corruption at its source. No more injections or ineffective treatments. Watch the video at goldenrevive.com/NNN. It's linked down below to see how it works and reclaim your freedom from pain. Just tap more below this video. So the bombshell revelation, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, multiple criminal referrals to the DOJ for treasonous leaking of classified intelligence. The deep state is being exposed. Let's dive in. DNI Gabbard confirming classified intel illegally leaked to the Washington Post for partisan political purposes to undermine Trump's agenda. These are not whistleblowers. These are saboteurs working against the American people.
Classified intel was partisan. The Director of National Intelligence sent 2 criminal referrals to the Justice Department, with a third on its way for the alleged leak of classified information. DNI Tulsi Gabbard said in a statement that there was a recent illegal leak to the Washington Post. Gabbard said the classified intel was leaked for, quote, partisan political purposes to undermine President Trump's agenda. Quote, politicization of our intelligence and leaking classified information puts our nation's security at risk and must end. Gabbard didn't specify who she was accusing of leaking or what information was disclosed. She said last month that she would aggressively pursue leakers. Gabbard's announcement comes a few days after Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth fired some of his top advisors amidst an ongoing leak investigation. Hegseth said in an interview on Fox and Friends that if the investigation discovers any of them leaked, they will be referred to the Justice Department for criminal prosecution.
In this point, those folks who were leaking, who have been pushed out of the building, are now attempting to leak and sabotage the president's agenda and what we're doing. And that's unfortunate.
In a joint statement, the 3 fired officials said they still hadn't been told what they're being investigated for or if there was truly a leak investigation. Quote, we are incredibly disappointed by the manner in which our service at the Department of Defense ended. Unnamed Pentagon officials have slandered our character with baseless attacks on our way out the door. Criminal referrals are made to the Justice Department by federal officials and members of Congress. The department has no obligation to take action. I'm Ray Bogan for...
We take this very seriously. It's illegally classified information, and people need to be held accountable. Here's Tulsi Gabbard.
Voted resound. Just first of all, point out what we know has been the problem for a very long time. One of the reasons why the American people voted resoundingly for President Trump was to root out the kind of politicization and weaponization of intelligence that has really undermined the trust the American people have in the intelligence community and the national security state, but really what also directly undermines our own national security. So I made it very clear to the U.S. Senate, to the American people when I had the honor of being appointed to this position, that we will not allow this to continue. We take this very seriously. It is illegal to leak classified information. And so what you're seeing here is me carrying out on the promise and the mandate the American people gave Trump. We conducted our own internal investigation. We have referred them now to the Department of Justice and the FBI for an official criminal investigation, because these are crimes and people need to be held accountable to put a stop to this. Just first of all,
James OKeefe catching rogue Pentagon employees working against Pete Hegseth. Deep state agents actively sabotaging the America First agenda from within. Here we have Allison Steinberg from Lindell TV reporting from the White House. Check this out.
Sort of. Other big news today, James O'Keefe released an expose regarding the DOD and rogue employees that are over there working against Pete Hegseth and President Trump and the America First agenda. He released a great video sort of highlighting the insanity that's going on over there. Let's take a listen to the latest from James O'Keefe.
I'm assuming that your boss isn't Pete Hegseth.
Ultimately, he is my boss.
Okay.
But this is insane. I actually know Pete Hegseth.
You do? Like personally?
But this is so crazy. Like, that's not a good reflection on me. That's a bad reflection on Trump. Like, nobody I know should be the Secretary of Defense.
Oh, no.
Like, he's insanely young to be and he wasn't that high up in the military. He used to be in the DC National Guard.
Oh, did you guys work together? Or?
Yeah, I mean, in our side hustle in the National Guard.
Oh.
And I met him in my unit. He was just in my unit.
Oh.
And I don't know, I can go on about Pete Hegseth.
Now, Nicholas Terza claims that he knows Hegseth from the D.C. National Guard, but we spoke to a senior official at the Pentagon who said that's not true, that Hegseth has not ever heard of this man or seen him.
Never heard of him, never seen him. I thought this was so wild. These crazy socialists make these radical claims and, can't even support them with any evidence. But for this guy to just, willy-nilly go out on a date and expose this classified information, it's very telling, very concerning. I mean, pretty sure this is a national security issue. Someone like this should not be employed. It should not be the branch chief of the Pentagon, probably. So I'm glad James O'Keefe exposed this. Interestingly enough, shortly after the release of this expose, this fellow, the branch chief of the Pentagon, Nicholas Terza, did actually delete his LinkedIn. So I think that's very telling and probably indicates that he may soon be out of the job. Hopefully that is the case.
And Donald Trump Jr. has publicly exiled officials claiming to be America First, but secretly undermining Trump. The lines are being drawn. Here is Megyn Kelly.
To X, that Hegseth will be fired by President Trump. Almost immediately after, Don Trump Jr. took to X and made clear that this guy, Mr. Elliott, is not America First, though he claims to be, and is officially exiled from the movement. He's not happy with this guy, Elliott. The three alleged leakers, however, remain a bit of a mystery. Why would Pete's top aides, including his friend Dan Caldwell, allegedly leak to NBC News about alleged war plans involving the Panama Canal? And there were other leaks, too, like that Elon Musk went over to the Pentagon. There were a few of them. It wasn't just the one. But this one would be top secret. All we know for sure is that Dan Caldwell appears to be part of MAGA's more non-interventionalist wing, which is fine. That's probably how Trump won the election in large part. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being non-interventionalist. I think the Republican Party in general has had it with the forever wars and the more bellicose nature of some of the parties. Certainly the neocons have become otherized and almost enemies to that strain of the party. So there's nothing wrong with Dan Caldwell feeling that way. And he does appear to feel that way. But the question is, was that view abhorrent to the people who fired him? Mr. Caldwell seems to think so. He went on Tucker's podcast last night with his first remarks since he got the axe. And in that exchange, Caldwell suggests that he was forced out of the Pentagon, not because he leaked anything to any member of the press, which he denies doing, but because he is anti-war with Iran due to his experiences in Iraq.
It started really pushing me to where I'm at now in foreign policy. Like, we need to do something differently. And it kind of radicalized me in a certain way on this. And really, there's an argument that you need to be, when you're talking about foreign policy, you kind of need to be cold and detached. Like some people say that realists need to be cold and detached. I don't necessarily buy that. But, you know, when I hear about launching a new military operation, somebody talk about something, my first thought is, what's it going to be like for the guys? What's it going to be like for the boys that are going to be in the front?
And we have more. Despite the fake news narrative, despite Trump sent a direct message to Putin to stop military strikes on Ukraine.
For being unwilling.
President Trump sending a very direct message to Vladimir Putin, stop the military strikes on Ukraine's capital.
Yeah, it's a different tone after he previously knocked Ukraine for being unwilling to broker a peace deal. Erica Brown shows us this latest push to bring the two sides to a deal.
After an hours-long barrage of Russian airstrikes on Ukraine's capital, President Trump reacted on social media, telling Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop.
I didn't like last night. I wasn't happy with it. And we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired. And I was not happy with it.
As he met with Norway's prime minister at the White House Thursday, the president spoke about Russia's assault that killed at least a dozen people, the deadliest attack on Kyiv in close to a year. Trump has repeatedly said Russia, which invaded Ukraine more than 3 years ago, is more willing than Ukraine to broker a peace deal. The president was asked what concessions Russia has offered so far.
Stopping the war, taking the whole country. Pretty big concession.
In an interview airing Sunday on CBS's Face the Nation, moderator Margaret Brennan asked Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov whether Putin agrees with Trump's assertion that the U.S. and Russia may have a deal to end the war.
The President of the United States believes, and I think rightly so, that we are moving in the right direction. The statement by the President mentions a deal, and we are ready to reach a deal, but there are still some specific points, elements of this deal which need to be fine-tuned.
President Trump is pushing a proposal that would reportedly exclude Ukraine from NATO and freeze the fighting close to the current front lines. Erica.
Secretary Hegseth restoring military excellence by reversing the insane Biden-era policies that allowed people with schizophrenia to join our armed forces. High standards equal lethality.
Conditions. We're back with another DOD reform, and this one, it's a doozy. Now, the official subject of this memorandum is review of medical conditions disqualifying for accession into the military, meaning in the previous administration, because they couldn't get enough recruits with all their lunacy, they lowered the standards and gave waivers to people who should never have been in the military in the first place. We're going to read a list in a second. So they lowered the standards and created waivers for people that had no business being in our formations. We're changing that through this guidance. Here's a little bit more on it. So applicants for military service, as we believe, must be physically and mentally able to perform their duties under the harshest of conditions without risk to themselves or others, right? Shouldn't be able to risk themselves or others unless it's the enemy. Then you want to hurt the enemy. That's why we need clear, high, and uncompromising medical and mental standards for those who desire to serve. They should never be lowered, but they were under Biden. Get this one. So this is current DOD policy that we inherited. It still permits medical waivers concerning medical conditions like schizophrenia, congestive heart failure, cystic fibrosis, and chronic use of oxygen. Now, there's one more that I didn't know what it was, so we had to look it up. Current DOD policy still allows for paraphilic disorders. Service members need to be medically ready to fight. So today I'm signing a memorandum that tasks the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness to reevaluate these medical standards for joining the U.S. military. High standards equal lethality. And we've already seen a huge surge under President Trump of Americans who want to join. And they want to join a military with high, clear standards. We can meet those standards. Biden couldn't, President Trump has. And that's why I'm proud to bring those standards back in line.
Let's go, baby. And Trump is already working to negotiate trade deals with 90 countries. The globalist CEOs of Walmart and Target are trembling as they privately warn about Trump's America First trade policies. America will no longer be taken advantage of.
so far to try and work. Well, last night, Donald Trump hinted at trade talks between the U.S. and China. Tonight, Beijing is denying that claim. The Trump administration says it's spoken to 90 countries so far to try and work out new trade deals. But after hints of progress with China from the White House, a strong denial this morning from Beijing. The country's Ministry of Commerce saying in part today, quote, any claims about the progress of China-U.S. trade negotiations are groundless. CBS News has confirmed the CEOs of Walmart and Target privately warned President Trump that his tariff policy could disrupt supply chains and potentially result in empty shelves in coming weeks.
The ripple effects are already starting to show. Prices are going up, markets are reacting, international partners are pulling back.
That voice is part of a new front in the trade battle. It's Arizona's Democratic Attorney General, who's joining 11 other states in suing the White House in an international court, alleging the president exceeded his authority to impose the tariffs. The White House has defended its policy, arguing the U.S. trade deficit right now is a national emergency.
And as we saw earlier, President Trump did in fact confirm that he has been in talks with China. So the explosive revelations about internal government sabotage raise profound questions about the true state of our republic. When unelected bureaucrats can actively work to undermine the elected president's agenda, we're witnessing nothing less than an administrative coup. So should Americans be concerned about the existence of a permanent government that operates regardless of who occupies the White House? Is this what the founding fathers envisioned for our republic? And most importantly, how deep does the shadow government actually extend? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. And make sure you want to defend America's constitutional order. Check out shop.nextnewsnetwork.com for exclusive Next News Network gear and show the world where you get your real news as we continue exposing the deep state traitors undermining our government from within.